Thinking about turning your dream into a reality? The New Jersey Sbdc network can help. We provide startup and planning training services, tools and resources to help evaluate your business idea, help you make sound business decisions, and pursue your dream of business ownership. It's important to note that we do not provide grants or loans. However, we provide information and technical assistance on how to access capital. Sound like you're in the right place? Great. The next step is to visit us online to get started on your path to success today.
All right, so pleasant good afternoon to everyone. My name is Priscilla Lyrebird Calder. I am the event coordinator here at the NJSBDC at Rutgers-Newark. And on behalf of Dr. Tendine Dorr, our regional director, I would like to welcome you to our webinar, Websites, Social Media, and Analytics. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with the Sbdc, which stands for Small Business Development Center, we are a resource center for the SBA, the Small Business Administration, and we help individuals and small businesses start and grow their businesses right here in New Jersey. We're one of 12 centers in the NJSBDC network. Each center is responsible for one or more counties. We are responsible for the Essex County, for businesses and individuals in Essex County. We are hosted by the Rutgers Business School here in Newark, and we are sponsored through a partnership agreement between the SBA, Rutgers University, and the New Jersey Business Action Center. So the main goal or mission of the Sbdc is to provide one-on-one business consulting to help start, grow, or scale your business. So we have many consultants on staff with different expertise in different areas that can assist you. So we have areas such as startup assistance, federal contracting, state contracting, certifications, digital marketing, accessing capital. A lot of us have been trying to get a lot of these programs that are out, the PPP, which has ended, the EIDLs, the targeted EIDLs, and NJEDA grants that are available. So we assist you with applying and receiving these funding. We also help you if you're trying to get into import-export. We partner with many of the agencies here. If you also need help with, putting together loan packaging, you needed help with manufacturing. We had a lot of people due to COVID, their supply chain was interrupted and they had to find new suppliers and manufacturers for their products, and we assist with those as well. Sourcing suppliers, private labeling, almost any area of expertise you're looking for. We do have consultants on staff with the experience in these areas to consult and help you. And like I said, this service is provided to you at no cost, or as many may say, it's funded already by your tax dollars. We also provide training and technical assistance services here. So the Newark Center is known for its many workshops and webinars, such as the one that you're attending. Most of these webinars are at no cost, thanks to the CARES Act funding that we received. And a few of them do have a nominal fee. Many of them have been discounted by 50%, again, thanks to funding from the CARES Act. So we do encourage you to attend our many training. You can visit our website at www.rnsbdc.com and click on the training tab, and there should be a list of all the workshops that we offer. If you happen to miss one, we try to repeat most of these webinars and workshops at least once every quarter or at least 3 times per year. So take a good look at our calendar to see when the next webinar will come along. If you are outside of Essex County, you are still invited to attend our webinar. It doesn't matter where in the state you reside, but when it comes to the one-on-one business consulting with one of our counselors, we do only schedule those who are in the Essex County area. If you're outside of Essex County, we do transfer you to your local Sbdc. So you will get the help that you need, but we do match you with the county in which you or your business resides. The only time that the only exception to this is if you attend one of our paid workshops and you want to follow up with the presenter, we do allow you to have sessions or consultation with that person, and then after which we allow you to do your follow-ups with your local Sbdc center. All right. So again, if you need to take advantage of this counseling service, please feel free to visit www.rnsbdc.com. And in the top right-hand corner of our website, there's a button there that says Request Counseling. You can click on that button, fill out the form, and within 24 to 48 hours, we do assign a consultant to reach out to you. So we look forward to helping you with that. Now, for today's presentation, we have a muted audio due to the fact that we were expecting at least 30 of you today on today's presentation. So it'll be a lot for us to have the microphones open. However, so we just do ask that if you have any questions, please post them at the, post them in the chat box. Post them in the chat box or use the Q&A, and we'll do our best to answer those questions either during or at the end of the presentation. This webinar is being recorded, so a copy of the webinar recording will be sent out. It usually takes about 48 to 72 hours for us to get that out to you, along with the slide presentation. So we will be emailing those out to you within, let's say, 28 to 48 hours, 24 to 48 hours. I'm making sure I don't miss anything here. Okay, so we've covered the, if you have questions and it's a multi questions that you have, follow-up questions, please raise your hand. I may be able to allow you audio so you can ask your questions instead of typing it in the chat, but we'll see how I can accommodate that as the presentation goes on. So now, without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to the presenter for today, Cecilia Henderson. Cecilia is the owner of WSI Marketing Edge, a marketing firm here in Wayne, New Jersey. She's also our digital marketing consultant here at Sbdc at Rutgers-Newark. She presents on the website, social media, and analytics, and engaging in online customer workshops, as well as many other digital marketing webinars that we have on the CARES Act program. So without further ado, I will turn over today's presentation to Cecilia.
Thanks so much, Priscilla. Welcome everybody to today's website, social media and analytics presentation. I'm going to just give an overview, as many of you are probably either doing a checkup on your own business or perhaps getting ready to start your business. But no matter where you are, it's kind of good to get to the high level of what am I here for? What are these tools used for? And what's the best way for me to use these tools? There is a more in-depth class that is given. This is really again, a bit of a higher level overview. The other class goes into a bit more depth on different types of platforms that are out there, different types of social media, etc. So, and more on analytics. So I'm going to stop my video so that I have better bandwidth. I'm going to share my screen. And I'm hoping that everybody, Priscilla, if you can see this, just let me know.
Yep, you're good.
All right, excellent. So I think we're there, except for my laggy computer. Did I just click? I clicked. There you go. So we are, we're going to talk today about why a website is really important for a small business, because maybe some people aren't convinced of that, but understanding why it's important, even if you have one, makes you think about, well, am I using it in the best way that I can? Why social media is going to be very important for you, how it fits in with your other marketing activities, and we'll highlight some key platforms. The idea is to really help you to begin to navigate through the choices that you might need to make if you're establishing or even strengthening the web presence that you already have. So why am I talking about this? Well, I do have a business in this particular area, so I have developed some experience with it, and I have a marketing background working for large companies.
I can turn down my...
Hello?
I'm sorry, Cecilia.
Did you not hear me? I'm sorry.
Yeah, you're good.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
All right. So yeah, I have a business in digital marketing. That's what WSI Marketing Edge is. But I also worked in marketing, and not just digital marketing, for almost 30 years, managing all parts of the marketing mix. And so it gives me some insights into how this all fits together. And I've worked with businesses that are B2B. In other words, they're selling to other businesses, or directly to consumers, which is B2C. So you can reach me, you'll get a copy of these slides, so you can reach me at that email and that phone number, which is at the Sbdc. So I wanted to start by sharing with you something that I saw long ago in my marketing career. I think it came from Microsoft, and it was really a presentation to salespeople. When we have our businesses, we're a small business owner, despite all that we might say that we do, we are also salespeople. And the message here in this particular slide was that particularly for products and services that are not inexpensive, it's going to take a number of connections with the person that you are trying to reach before they decide to buy. So think of buying a car, or purchasing a new IT system or something like that. These are complex purchases, and they require consideration. So sometimes they're called considered purchases. This is very different from deciding to buy a candy bar. We don't go through all of this. We just grab what we want, and our only discussion is whether or not we really need it. In this particular instance, you're going to have multiple contacts with people. And in this particular study, they said, it could take from 7 to 13 touches or contacts with your target customer before they actually become a customer. And they also talk about the fact that throughout that, when they actually looked at what salespeople do, after the first contact, it looks like 50% of salespeople might have given up. Like, I called them, they didn't answer, they didn't want it, I'm gone. The second contact, maybe after that, 66% of people have given up, and so on and so forth. So the message here was, don't stop reaching out, because, by the way, your competitors have probably already stopped. And if you're the last person standing, that's a good thing. So that's a sales environment. Okay, that's definitely, a face-to-face, I'm going door to door, or I'm making calls and I'm setting up appointments type of situation. But what about a situation like now, because as I told you, this is kind of dated, where you have social media and you have, of course, your traditional marketing stuff. How does that all fit in? Well, think about all the things that you have that can touch a customer or a prospect. We call a prospect until they become a customer. You got your social media. We're going to talk about that today. You got your website. Of course, we'll be talking about that. email, Google ads, Facebook ads, in-person visits on the other side that are more traditional. This is not digital. This is, I'm going to show up, or even just print things like flyers, brochures, and print ads. So I think I saw a hand raised, and I just wanted to make sure that we didn't have any issues here. Okay, it all seems to be gone. All right, the point being that all of these things are things that can interact with a customer. And in this particular instance, let's say you have social media. Maybe social media is your first contact, and maybe at some point, social media is seen a fourth time by the person, or at the fourth contact. So a contact is any time they might come into contact with your company. Whether it is they met you at a networking event, that's a contact. They saw a Facebook post, that's a contact. They visited your website, that's a contact. The point is, all of these things kind of combine to create the awareness that a customer has about you. So this can work with your traditional stuff over here, where I actually show up, or I actually have something that I've mailed to them, or it could be, a Google ad that they found, or that they were searching for your services and you popped up as an ad. So there's different ways that you get to your customer. This instance, like a website at different points. So all of this is to say, when you look at the model that I showed you about the customer and the salesperson coming to visit, in this day and age, those touches are not always going to be face-to-face touches. And I'm not saying to you that you must go and knock on someone's door 12 times before they become your customer, but it is the number of contacts and the degree of comfort and familiarity that you are creating with your target audience that makes them your customer ultimately. So what does that mean? Basically, what I just said, for some purchases, you're going to have multiple interactions with the brand, and that's what's going to sway your prospect's opinion. So going back to those 12 touches or contacts, interactions these days are not always person to person. Information needs to support where they are in the buying process too. Because somebody who has just decided to buy a car versus somebody who knows what kind of car they want and is merely looking for where the closest dealership is to buy the car, they're looking for two different pieces of information, two different levels of detail. And in fact, these days, your digital presence may be the most important part of the interaction or the touch, because frankly, you cannot be everywhere. I mean, we have to sleep. And I love the fact that digital marketing and your website and your social media can actually sell for you while you're sleeping. And then, of course, with the pandemic, this means that a lot of people have got increasing comfort with and reliance on online or digital interactions. So even coming out of the pandemic, which eventually we will, there are going to be some legacy things. I mean, I know that I personally will continue to order food online. And yes, maybe I'll go by and pick it up, but I still want to do touchless because I have a customer need for not coming into contact with a lot of people, because maybe somebody lives in my house who's immunocompromised. Not only that, maybe I'm lazy and I just don't feel like going inside. So what we're seeing is that some of the things that were set up and really utilized during pandemic will continue. And there's an overall level of comfort now, I think, with more digital interactions with a wider set of people that ever were familiar with it or comfortable with it before. So now what I want to do is talk to you about different components. And the first component I'm going to talk about is the website. And for me, this is the bread and butter of digital marketing in terms of the fact that, it is the online place to go to find out about somebody's company, at least from their point of view. So you go there, they tell you what they do, why they do it, how they do it, how much it costs, possibly, depending on what it is. And you can get quite a lot done there. You don't really need to go anyplace else, but you have to know that it's there first. Now, the reason why I have a picture of a phone instead of a laptop computer is because a lot of website visits are now done on the phone. So whatever you're doing online, you should think about how it looks on different formats, and particularly how it looks on the phone. Some people try to do things on the phone that I would never try to do, but I can't afford a mistake. I get paid and I can't afford to make a mistake. On a phone, it's a small screen. And so to me, I feel like it's problematic, but a lot of people are quite comfortable with it. So when you're thinking about a website, what should you be thinking about? Whether you already have one or whether or not that website is something that you've never touched before and you're thinking about putting your toe into the water, you need to think about who your audience is, what their expectations are when they come there, and you should take into account what your competitors are doing. So audience is kind of clear. You know, if you're talking to lawyers, then you need to come across a certain way. If your target market is construction workers, maybe you have a wider range of ways that you could appear. What are their expectations? Do they expect to buy something? Do they expect to learn more in depth before they call? Do they expect to make up an appointment, you know, for a beauty spa? What are their expectations? That's one of the things you need to take into account. Those are the major things you need to take into account. When it comes to what your competitors are doing, it really gives you, if you know who your competitors are, or even people who provide services in a similar way, they don't have to be your direct competitors, then you can get a sense of the range of capabilities out there if you don't know off the top of your head, the range of ways that people talk about the product. And you can figure out how to differentiate yourself. So competitive analysis, whether it is done with, you know, print media or websites or what's going on in social media, is one of the great ways to help to differentiate yourself against your competition and hopefully leave them in the dust. So a website does help to build your business because, as I said before, it really communicates your story, but more particularly, it communicates your story in the way that you want it done. It describes you and your services. If you're answering all the questions that people might have, think of the questions that a customer is going to have. It helps to highlight your differentiation. In a sense, it's like, why buy from me? Why me as opposed to somebody else? It can provide customer education, like if you have a blog page, or depending on the type of business you have, you might have articles that you've written that people can download. You might have tip sheets that people can use in order to evaluate quotes for, you know, construction, for example. It may enable people to make an appointment with you, or they can actually buy from you. And like I said before, you can actually sell here while you're sleeping. Maybe you're not making the transaction, but you're bringing somebody further down that path from total stranger into somebody who's interested in you and might do more research. And that's part of the sales process. That's why there are those 12 touches. And the other thing that it does is it links to your social media sites. And so that's why we're talking about websites and social media together. This is all about making sure that you tell your story and in a way that you get found. And your website may, especially if you're a new business, be the main way that somebody comes to see your website in the first place. It's going to be your social media, maybe the main way that people come to your website because they see something and they go, oh, let me click on that. If it's a good piece of content. So somebody is asking, and Jessica, yes, you will be able to get a presentation. We will, as was mentioned, be sending it out in a couple of days after this particular meeting. So don't worry about taking a lot of notes, just kind of get the high level messaging. And so overall here, the point is it's important to your business because it really is the place where you tell your story in the way that you only can. And it can sell while you're sleeping. I'm going to keep saying that over and over again. So if somebody doesn't have a website, there are hurdles. And it's like there's a blank sheet. And you've got to write something on it. What do I say? What am I going to include? And what am I going to exclude? And there's this fear of getting started. But in my view, it really doesn't have to be all that complex. And the more you worry about it, it's just unprofitable time to worry about it. The simpler, the better. Focus on your customer and prioritize the information that you think they want to know. And so the other reason why I think people have problems with websites is they feel like, well, once I get it up there, it's written in stone and it can never change. And that is not the case. In fact, I would say that, within several months, if you haven't had a website and you put one up and you've made certain choices that you think are the best choices, particularly if your business is new, as you start to interact with more and more people, you may modify your website to suit the target that you really have now honed in on, or to suit the kinds of things that you want to highlight, and you may de-emphasize or remove other things. So think of that website as living and breathing. It is more static, of course, than social media, because social media, you can do a post every day. Most people don't change their websites every day. So, but you should be looking at it and always making sure that it's relevant to what you're doing. I often will run into people that are doing updates on their website, and we start to look at things like who's on the staff, and that guy left 5 years ago. So you can see that, it's really important to keep these things up to date. Now, one of the benefits of a website is the data that it can bring you. And part of what I'm talking about, at least at a high level, is analytics. What are the analytics telling you? They're telling you that people are seeing the message that you're putting forth. They're telling you how much traffic is coming to your website, what pages that they can go to on your website, or that they do go to. It's telling you the number of people that come to your website and leave immediately because they didn't see what they wanted, or they got there by mistake. It's telling you what percentage of people might have clicked through to another page. And it's telling you about conversions. And conversions would be defined as, ultimately, a conversion is, I bought something from you. But you could have a mini conversion, like I made an appointment, or I downloaded a paper. So any action that customer takes that's part of that journey towards buying something is considered a conversion. So I thought I saw a click on the chat, but I don't, or it's no longer there. So I think there's certain expectations that you want to have about websites. We talked about metrics. And the reason why I want to tell you about these expectations is because we tend sometimes to think about the website as, I have 5 pages and somebody's just going to read through my website like it's a book. That's not usually the case. In fact, no matter the size of the website, on average, people spend 2 or 3 minutes on a website. It's an average. Now, some visits are seconds because they got what they wanted, or because they didn't get what they wanted. Other visits are days. Maybe they leave the link open, or, maybe it's hours because they're taking a class and the class is hosted on that website. But the bottom line is, you need to consider the attention span of the average person, and to think about what else is competing for it. And if they're going to spend, they basically go to 2 or 3 pages per session. So again, they're not going to read through from the home page all the way to contact us. So what this means is that you have to make it clear, if there's a purpose to your website, that purpose should be clear. And this is about the navigation and making it easy for people to do whatever they want to do from wherever they are on your website. So, actually, I'm wondering if I can show an example about navigation. So let me get out of here for a second and go to one of my fun places. So you may be familiar with Canva. I don't know. So if you have a question, if you can put them in the chat or the Q&A, that would be great. I think I keep seeing that a hand has been raised, but when I check, I'm not seeing anything. So please just go there. So what I want to do is to talk to you about ease of navigation in particular. So when people go to Canva, this is a great tool for people to use if you're looking to create social media posts or do some creative work and you don't have Photoshop and you're not a graphic artist. I cannot say that Canva replaces or brings your skills up to those of somebody who is an artist, but it certainly can help you get started. You can do unprofessional stuff on Canva as well as you can do professional looking stuff. But here's the thing. I came to this place because I want to make something Everywhere I look, I'm being told what I can make. I'm being told right here, I can create a presentation, I can do social media, I can create a video, I can print something. I can click on this, I want to create a design. And when I go to that, it's telling me again, all of the options that I have. Why? Because they know that is why I am here. I am not here to learn about theory. I am not here to see other products that this particular company may have in addition to Canva. I'm only here for Canva. Even here, I'm able to see. So I just love the fact that it's almost overkill, but it's totally functional. And so when I talk about navigation being critical, they've obviously taken it to the next level. You can't not say, I don't know how to click on something to get to a LinkedIn post template or something so that I can begin to work. And that's the way it should be. Going back into the presentation mode, when it comes to your website and getting found, competition is very stiff. What does that mean? That means that if somebody is a lawyer and we go to the top of Google and we type in lawyer near me, Google gives us a page of results. In fact, they don't just give us a page. They give us, if you actually look here, and I've lost my mouse, 717,000 results in 0.51 seconds. So just look down below lawyer near me, keep looking down and it will say all. And it's giving you 717,000 results in less than half a second. So that means there's a lot of competition. And the first three things you see here happen to be ads, which is really kind of interesting because, yeah, that's how you get to the top of the page. But you and your website, you might like to be on the first page, and that just doesn't happen naturally. Other than conversions, what can be the most important pitch point from your site? I'm looking at a question. What may an investor be the most interested in from a community education site? Okay, this is a question from Quincy. So the question is, other than conversions? Well, first of all, a conversion, as I mentioned, is anything that brings that person who is on your site closer to what that site is there for. If the site is there to get them to sign up for a class or to invest in a particular item that you have, then everything that you put on there has to be around that. And a conversion could be as simple as they click the phone to call you. So that's where we want to talk about, your strategy for your website and the components of your website. So a conversion is at a high level thought of as a sale, but a conversion can be any other thing that moves them to a sale, depending on the type of business that you have. So there's a question about what are the considerations involved in creating a website. We're going to talk a little bit about that in a second. What I wanted to do is talk about what the website is there for, and then we'll get into some of those considerations, and then we will do it in a bit more depth when we go into the fuller class. So as I told you, there's a lot of competition for your website. So the point being that if you were getting a website and you launch that website, on that first day, you're not going to get a lot of traffic. The day one traffic actually could be zero. There are a lot of things that have to happen to bring people to your website. They have to know about it. So Google has to index it. So search engines, they do something called crawling the site so that they know what's on it. And then they'll kind of rank it and categorize it. Because again, if you're a lawyer and you got a law site for your firm, there's 717,000 other results that they can get to in, seconds. The other thing then is an ongoing activity called search engine optimization. That is making sure that in addition to having a site that looks good on the back end of your site, it has all of the information that Google actually needs to properly index it. And also that content is being put out on your behalf or by you that might bring people to your website. And it starts as you start to get more traffic, you'll get more traffic, as it were. So it is almost like a spiral activity that you have to do. The other thing that gets your website found, as I mentioned or showed you before, is paid advertising. On the page that I showed you with the 717,000 results, the first 3 items were maps. And then the first 3 items were ads. And then the next thing you saw was a map. And that's part of a Google listing, which we'll talk about in a second. And then finally, your social media presence. If your website's being talked about a lot, it will potentially get offered up as a result when somebody searches for lawyer near me. The trick here is to earn your way to the top of the page. So 2 things. The first is some people have websites and their whole objective is I need as much traffic as possible. At that point in time, then they need to be aggressively doing paid advertising. They need to be doing search engine optimization or SEO. And as part of that, their social media presence. There's another way websites are used, which is, all right, I'm in a conversation with somebody. I need to be able to refer to something else aside from my talking face when, they ask me questions. And so I give them this website and it's kind of proof that I'm a serious business and they get to learn much more about me. It's almost like a resume, but it's a resume for a business. So when we start to talk about considerations, obviously you need to decide whether or not you want to do this type of thing yourself or outsource it. 9 times out of 10, if you're in business, you really don't have time or resources or skill to do it yourself, but some people do that. Or you find firms that do like I do, they develop websites for people. Now, the other thing that you want to think about is, hey, what kind of activity is being done on this site? Do I need to have a site that will accommodate e-learning or classes? Do I need a lot of video on my site? Am I showing a lot of graphics? Am I targeting gamers and I need to have a certain level of speed to show samples? Am I just doing simple e-commerce? Or is it really, just a traditional static site with a little bit of video, a little bit of this and that, but it's not really there I'm not trying to be a mini Amazon. I just need a website that represents my business. So you need to think about the functionality, and you'll think about that functionality better when you start to look at what your competitors are doing and decide, okay, well, they're doing this. I don't really think I need to do this, or they're doing this. I feel like if I don't at least do that, I won't really make the grade. The other thing that you want to think about with your website and ask people about with the different platforms that they have is the ability to make changes. So I just introduced a term called platform. There are different kinds of websites out there, different, let's call it brands, but I'm going to call it platform because that's how you build it. And so we'll talk a little bit more about that, but they're just different kinds of websites. Some of them are more aligned towards e-commerce and others are less aligned towards e-commerce. Some can have e-commerce added, some it's hard to add e-commerce. Let's see, the perception of the website versus competitors and how you're positioned in the marketplace. So that is something that you want to think about when it comes to your website and its design and what you include on your website. Want to make sure that you understand the different components that may that you may run across. And the first is you need your web address or your URL. This is the www.rnsbdc.edu or something like that. That is something that nobody else in the world has. That's something that the Rutgers Sbdc has. But what we're doing is we don't own it. We basically lease it and we have to renew it on a regular basis. If you do not renew your URL or your web address, you will lose it. And I had a customer wake up one day and he's a doctor and he went to his website and it had been taken over by a Chinese website selling pharmaceuticals or something because he never paid for his website when GoDaddy or whoever it was said you need to pay. We eventually got it back. But in the short term, we had to actually go from a .com to a .net, and that was not ideal. Now, the other thing that you need for your website is your actual content or your words. And sometimes this is the first stopping place, as I talked about. It's that blank page that you have to figure out what is on there. But again, once you think about what you're trying to do, what action you're trying to get people to take, and what they need in order to take that action, that is going to tell you what should go on that page. Also, within that content is that structure or that navigation that we just talked about. The next thing that you need to think about is hosting, where your website actually sits. So it could be on a physical server somewhere, or it could be in the cloud. And then maintenance. Sometimes you're going to do maintenance because maybe you got a platform that requires that type of updating, or you want to add plugins. And one thing I didn't think, I didn't put here, it's not core to the components, but as I mentioned, periodically you need to look at that content and make sure that that content is still what you want it to be. Am I still talking to that type of customer, or have I settled on a subsegment? Am I still emphasizing this product first above no other? Is it still very clear how I can get to the end result of calling me and making an appointment to sit down for a consultation? So you got choices, as we kind of referred to. So what kind of platforms? Well, you got platforms out there that are like e-commerce. So you may have heard of something called Shopify. Shopify is a website platform. Now, Shopify is not a blog kind of platform. It really is there because it says shop. So you have e-commerce or not e-commerce. And some people will never have e-commerce as part of their websites. Doctors, for example, or lawyers, they're not doing e-commerce. They may have a payment portal. That's a little different. That's not e-commerce in the way that Amazon or eBay is e-commerce. Server-based versus cloud-based. This is where your content sits. So a server is actually a physical place that your content is, and the cloud is the cloud. So it is not necessarily a physical place, or it's a network of servers, but it's not something that and it's automatically backed up. So server-based versus cloud-based, there's not, to me, much of a difference between the two, because if we're not technical, then it's just a behind the scenes thing. To me, the ultimate is that your website be flexible so that you can make lots of modifications. So if you decide later that maybe I didn't start out e-commerce, but I'd like to add it, can I easily do that? Versus less flexible, all I really can do is e-commerce. It's hard for me to put just straight up content on there. Or I have a platform that's really, really very basic and, really can't tolerate video. And it's such a template that if I change it, it breaks. So that's less flexible. Portability. So portability means, let's say that I developed a website on one platform and I want to move it to another because that platform is more flexible. Some types of websites are less easily moved than others. Many times the ones that are cloud-based are less easily moved. And then you want to think about how well known the platform is. If it's relatively new and you end up needing help, you want to make sure you can find somebody who can help you. Maybe the person that you started working with isn't that ideal person anymore. So maybe you want to use something that's more commonly available. And what I've seen is that a lot of places are now offering platforms that you can build a website on, and that's just not their core competency. So for example, I've seen GoDaddy now offering, you can get a website on GoDaddy, you can get a website on, I don't know, any number of places, but there are some limitations to those websites. They're fine for very simple things. So that's where you need to think about, well, what is it that I want it to do? And does it do that? And if time passes and I'm going to change, am I going to be willing to invest in something a bit more? Because sometimes people will go with simple formats because it's, relatively inexpensive. What I would say too is that we're talking about hosting here, the server versus the cloud. Server-based, you pay for hosting on an annual basis. Cloud-based, you're basically paying almost like a subscription to your website. You don't pay separately for hosting, but there usually is a monthly or an annual charge to have the website. The other thing is that those sites tend to be a little bit less portable. In other words, you can't take the content away as easily. You have to almost redo the whole thing. In the end, that may be what you do for a variety of reasons when you're upgrading even a server-based website because of the extent of changes, but it's just something to consider. So here's a list that you can think about, and the question is whether you need it. So there's something called an integration or a plugin that might enable additional features that weren't there in the beginning. So you may have heard of WordPress. WordPress is famous for the number of integrations that it has. So if you want to start out with a straight up website and there's no e-commerce and then add it later on, you can certainly do that. If you want to add a particular type of calendar or a scheduling system or any number of things, you can do that with WordPress. And there's all kinds of integrations out there that developers have created specifically for this purpose. On the other hand, a platform like a Wix, for example, they may not be as much focused on integrations, but they have widgets that allow you to do many of these things. So you just have to decide. It might be 6 in one hand, half dozen in the other. Keeping the integrations up to date. If you do something like that that requires an actual plugin, you will have to, from time to time, update them because the developer finds a bug and fixes it. If you're using a Wix, maybe that's not a component of what you do. But the question is, how often does this come up? You also want something that can really be modified in any significant way by a developer. So sometimes the easy to build systems that are DIY, they are very much fixed in what they can do. And if you decide to go outside of the template that they have, it's difficult. So that's sometimes why a person might move from one platform to another. You may have issues with size limits. I personally have not seen this, but apparently there are platforms out there that might say you can't have that many pages. Or, as I mentioned, how easy is it for you to migrate from one platform to another if you need to? How easy is it for you to do e-commerce? And even just if it's you wrote a book and you want to sell it, that's not pure e-commerce, but is it easy to get a plugin or something, or have a payment link where you can incorporate e-commerce? There are free platforms out there, but be very careful because they may have actual ads on your website that are not related to your business. They may be advertising themselves. So we'll see that sometimes with Wix or other platforms like that. So overall ease of use. And then, as I mentioned, make sure that you're not getting something that's so new or so infrequently used that if you needed professional help, nobody's going to want to deal with it because it's like, you're going to have to pay them to learn the platform. So ultimately, you don't want to back yourself into a corner, but you want to get what you need. You don't need, if you don't need, the Maserati and you can do with the Chevrolet, do with the Chevrolet. So we talked about the website and the fact that social media is one of the ways, and probably early on, one of the most common ways that people are going to see your website. You want to make sure that they are connected. They interplay with each other. And in fact, your social media presence can really help your website get visitation, because a brand new website is just, as I mentioned, sad to say, not going to get a lot of natural visitors. So here's the example. If you are, let's just go back to legal services, and you're in North Jersey, there are many lawyers and there are many websites. And if somebody says, I want a lawyer near me, how does Google decide who to show? Well, they may not show a website that just got put up yesterday because it's new. They also won't show a website that is that does not have a lot of content on it. Google reads words, and if you only have like 100 words on your website, that's not a lot of information. So Google is looking to give its customers what they're looking for. What are they looking for? They're looking for content. They're looking for fresh and new content, not new because the website is new, but maybe a website that is established, but it's maintained. So if Google had a choice between a website that was 5 years old and hasn't been touched in 5 years and one that is 5 years old and is regularly updated every week with a blog, it's going to show the one that's regularly updated every week with a blog. So you see that it feels like that's a more engaged provider, and it's using these kind of odd situations. If in fact your website is 5 years old and you've got a blog and it's also active on social media and people are referring your website to other people on social media, you would get above the website that just has the blog. So this is the thing that Google is looking for, just that. And you want to make sure, again, as they work together, you're going to share content from your website to your social media. And you can use interesting content on your social media to pull people to your site. So for example, if you had a blog, you could post the blog on your website and then share that page with on your LinkedIn. Place the first few lines there, and in order to get to the rest of it, they have to click and go to your website. That's how you start to kind of build a traffic to your website, and people at least know it's there. And it starts ruminating in the background that you've got visitors coming to your website. And again, the more visitors that you get, it's a heavily trafficked website. That even is more important than, well, I'm not going to say it's more important, but if you're ticking off things, one is traffic, one is recently updated, one is talked about on social media, and it's not a website that just got put up yesterday. That's a strong website. So I want to move into social media and talk a bit about this because there are questions that arise here as well. The big thing that happens here with a lot of businesses is, well, I don't want to deal with this because I haven't even figured out which platform, or social media is the devil and I want nothing to do with it. But the fact is, it is the public square. And if you want to be where people are, and we are in the digital world of maybe we don't go out as much as we used to, how do we reach out to people? Well, you got to be where people are. That's the rationale behind social media. So your choice of where you hang out or where your business hangs out, let's put it that way, it's going to be driven by your business strategy. Who are your customers? What are their demographics and where do they hang out? Also by the message you have to deliver. If it's complex and it's video, obviously you probably have to be doing a little bit of YouTube. So the format of your message can make a big difference. If you're like a design company and you're heavily image oriented, then you're going to be thinking about Instagram or even Pinterest. So we're going to, so I know there are questions. Let's talk at the end now. I just want to move through this because I think this is related to the website issue, which is, what social media marketing can do for your business. So of course, it can create some relationships with people because that's what you're trying to do when you're selling and when you're selling your business or selling your services. It can market and sell for you. People do have stores on Facebook, Instagram, you can buy and sell there. But you're also creating an image, and you can also manage your reputation. You can do customer service. You could actually do some talent hunting and attracting if you're trying to find a certain type of person to work with or a partner to do business with. You can do market research. You can launch surveys depending on the platform. You can create communities, which are groups of people that are interested perhaps in the services that you provide. And basically, social media marketing can bring people directly to your website. So in terms of best practices or considerations, you want to define your objectives. What are you trying to accomplish when you go out and when you go to social media? So this is very much akin to, I'm going to go to a networking meeting. Who am I going to want to talk to? What am I going to try to accomplish when I'm there? And then once you've done that, you get a sense of what your outline is. What is your takeaway that you want people to have after they've visited, for example, your Facebook business page or your LinkedIn company page, or even your LinkedIn profile? What's that takeaway? You also want to understand what your customers or clients are doing on social media, because here's the thing with social media. Yes, they're there sometimes just entertaining themselves, but if they have an interest in what it is you're doing, you'll find that people's interests, their work interests, are actually things that they indulge in when they're on social media, because this is what they do. This is who they are. If they're teachers, they're interested in education. If they are lawyers, they're interested in law. But maybe they don't want to be overtly sold to. But sharing information and putting yourself into the position of being an information provider and a thought leader is very valuable to your business. So that's why the third tip here is to share more than you promote. If you had to put a percentage on it, maybe 70% of your posts should be about sharing information that your target audience might need to know in order to make a decision in your particular product area. And then 30% might be, I buy, I sell this, I do these things, more promotional. So you really want to limit that promotion, because what happens is, because people are in their relaxed mode, they might be willing to learn about their topic of interest or where the stuff they work on, but they may not be willing to get overtly sold all that much. And so if all they ever see is selling, they're going to be turned off by it. And maybe it's not such a negative a negative reaction, but their eye just will gloss over overt attempts to sell. The thing that also you need to keep in mind is that we don't own the social media platforms. So for businesses that are solely on social media, the risk is that tomorrow Facebook or LinkedIn could change a feature that you think is absolutely critical to your business. And, as somebody who does a lot of social media marketing, I can tell you there are groups of people out there who do what I do on social media, and it's always, do you notice that Facebook took this away? Or why did Facebook change that? Or Facebook did this, or LinkedIn did that. It's because they are always trying to optimize the platform for themselves and for their customers' experience, not for my experience as a person who's trying to manage something for a client. So again, we didn't pay for it. We actually have no right to complain, but we do complain. So you want to understand who your customers are, as we talked about. And when we talked about what your objectives are, you want to start crafting your messaging, because in your messaging, the posts that you make should be consistent with that messaging. It shouldn't be random posts that you're making. You should have a plan where you're laying out, what do I want to tell clients over this period of time? Choose your platforms and create your business profiles. And we are talking about having business profiles on these platforms. So in other words, let's hold LinkedIn to the side, but on Facebook and Instagram, you don't want to use your personal profile or your personal Instagram to promote your business. You want to actually create business profiles. And you want to create a posting cadence. In other words, decide, how often am I going to post? Is it going to be twice a week, 3 times a week, or even once a week? Sometimes this is the biggest problem that people have, because they've been told, oh, we must post a certain amount of times a week or else it's just not worth it. Well, I can't say that I believe that. What I can say is being there is more important than not being there. Being regular is better than being irregular. And if somebody is deciding to check you out and they're checking you out on social media, they're not going to say, oh, gee, they only posted, twice a week and this other person posted 3 times a week. They're just going to look at the content. They're going to know that you're there. And what you don't want to see is they posted in 2017 and I haven't seen them since. So maybe they're no longer in business. So that's the problem with being irregular. There are lots of things that can help you post. You can use social media management tools like there's one called Hootsuite or Planoly. I don't know all of them. There's a whole bunch of them. Just type in social media management tools and they'll pop up. Many of them have free trials, but what they do is they allow you to connect in. Let's say you decide I want to post on Facebook and LinkedIn. You can actually create that post on this third-party location and have your LinkedIn and your Facebook hooked in with Hootsuite or Planoly and schedule out when you want it to show up, and it will show up. And it's a great time saver because that means you don't have to make 2 posts. You can use your content across both of those platforms. And then you also can see if people are reacting to it, because you need to be there to react back to them. And also then you want to evaluate your metrics to understand your impact. This is one of the reasons why we said to have a business profile. Personal profiles don't have much in the way of metrics. Also, personal profiles don't really support you're doing ads or anything like that. So your business profile is going to give you the most flexibility when it comes to your ability to understand how what you're doing is impacting your target audience. One thing I want to make sure that you understand is when you post on social media, there's something called reach. Reach is how many people have seen what you posted. There's something called organic reach, and there's something called paid reach. Organic reach is basically what Facebook is just going to do with that post. Who is it going to show it to without your paying them? How does it decide? It has an algorithm. Facebook shows people stuff they want to see. If they look at a lot of pictures of people skateboarding and your stuff is about skateboarding and other people have reacted to it, maybe they'll show that. But if they never look at skateboarding and your stuff is about skateboarding, you can pretty much be sure that it'll be low down on the priority list for Facebook to show that to somebody that you're kind of connected with, or to put it into somebody's news feed. Paid means that you've actually paid Facebook or LinkedIn to show your post to a specific audience that you have targeted. And you can do very good targeting on social media profiles. Just understand that when you do paid, which is basically advertising, that the people that you're reaching are not necessarily looking for what you have. So that means that they are at the very top of the funnel in terms of conversion. They're closer to that total, I don't know who you are, than they are to I'm ready to buy. And so other things need to happen in order to make that decision go in your favor. So again, organic reach actually has been declining year over year as Facebook and other platforms are really trying to monetize that exposure for businesses. I want to say there's no truth to the rumor that Facebook only shows you 25 people's posts. But what Facebook does do is it shows you the stuff that you prefer to interact with. And you'd have to be on it a long time to see a lot of different people's posts. So it's going to really be in favor of making people want to stay on the platform. And the reason why they stay on the platform is that they see the stuff that they like and they see it over and over again. So if you show them stuff that they don't like, they'll leave. And that's how people get into silos, but that's what Facebook does. Because the longer a person is there, the more ads they see. So I already explained this. So this is the algorithm that Facebook or LinkedIn use. It's how they decide who's going to see what you post. They have a set of rules. They do not share them, but they are learning from what you do on the platform. So again, just like Google wants to make people happy that are doing searches, Facebook wants to give visitors this optimal experience that meets their interests. And unfortunately, that might not make me very happy because I'd like to think that everybody sees my social media posts. They do not. So one tip I want to give you, if we do nothing at all for visibility and to get your business on the map, as it were, literally, you should get a Google My Business profile. Basically, Google My Business is this tool for businesses and organizations to manage their online presence across Google, including search and maps. So Google's not only the search engine that is, pulling up results when somebody's searching for your business, but what about when somebody's driving around and they're looking for your business? Are they going to see you on a map? And then Google My Business can get you into that map pack. So again, it's free, and you go to business.google.com. If your business is already on Google, then that's great. I mean, it's already got Google My Business, that's great. But if it is not, it's a wonderful way to get yourself visibility. You can do things like share your blog post from your website on Google My Business because you basically have a page there. So it supports your business being found by the search engine. So if you've found that your site has not been indexed, this might be something that you might want to do if you're not getting it done any other way. Usually you don't need to do this, but it supports your business being included in the Google Maps, and you know how heavily used that is. So if you are a brick and mortar store or you have a physical office that people go to, then you want to be able to be seen or included on those maps. You might not be the first 3 businesses that show up, but if they expand it, sometimes if you click more, you'll see far more locations on that map. And that's important. You're able to highlight key services that you provide and even do some transactions using Google Play. The other thing that you can do is you can collect reviews. So, you know, you can get 4 stars, 5 stars. You can ask for those reviews. You can even send people a link from your Google My Business listing, and they click on that and they can leave a review for you. So again, it's www.business.google.com to sign up. You just basically create a business profile on Google. Now, you do need a Gmail ID. So if you're working with Yahoo, you'll need to create a Google ID as well. Basically a Google address. So just sign up for Google email, and that will be your Gmail ID. And then it doesn't matter. You can then create the business profile. You can continue to use the Yahoo if you want. It has no, impact on anything else, but you need that Gmail in order to have a business profile on Google. So what does Google do for you? If you have an office, for example, I was looking for somebody, and let's say it's Dr. Frank Ferrara. Not only does it show me a website where he's listed, along with other reviews of Dr. Ferrara, but it gives you this side panel. And that's really important because it's the biggest thing on the page, right? So you could be the smallest business, but it doesn't matter, because if they're looking for you and they may know your name or they know the name of the business and they Google it, this is the kind of thing that can happen. Now, there are images here because you can add photos. You can see outside of this guy's office, you see his address, his hours, and he's got 1 review, but he can get many more. So if you have like 5 or 6 reviews, that's a good thing. So that's why the Google My Business, I think, is really going to be helpful for you. Just a quick thing on Facebook. We know about Facebook in terms of what it is, but it's interesting because I need to say that a lot of people are saying, why would I be on Facebook? Because Facebook is like not for businesses, but because of the fact that people are on it so much, and 68% of adults in the US are on Facebook, and 51% of them use it several times a day. That's a lot of people. And as I said, it may seem kind of odd to be talking about, technical topics or engineering or whatever it is you might do on Facebook. But again, if you're sharing information and you're not always selling, Facebook is a great location for you. You'll see when we look at a little bit of LinkedIn, LinkedIn is definitely a business location, but LinkedIn is not used very intensively. Many people don't go home at night and page through LinkedIn. LinkedIn is often, maybe once a week or once a month, people go to LinkedIn. Facebook, every day. So I think it's just important as a marketer, you need to be where people are. And this is where people are. People are on Facebook, they're on Instagram. You would be amazed at the number of people that are using some of the newer platforms as well for more traditional things like legal or accounting, because of where their audience is. So again, your personal Facebook has nothing to do with your business Facebook, but you do need a personal profile. You could, if you're not on Facebook, just create a profile, don't even populate it. And then also, then once you created that, you now have the option to create a business page. So you don't even have to you can put the minimum information, but nobody is really going to be able to go from your business page to your personal profile if you set your privacy correctly. The other thing that you can do is you can have a group within Facebook. So if, for example, you do counseling of a certain type of patient and you want to create a support group on Facebook, that's an opportunity for you because you manage the group, but you also create a community of people that are interested in the kinds of services. And so, that's one way of building some credibility. You're asking, I just picked up a question. about can you connect to more than one business page with a personal profile? I do not know the answer to that question. You know what? Try it and see. But I think just I think your page needs to be linked to a profile. You could have, I think you can have more than one business. So once again, your business page presents you as a business. So let's say, here's the scenario. Somebody sees a post that you've made related to a topic in your business. They are intrigued by it. They click on it and they're actually brought to your Facebook business page. They could click on it potentially and go to your website, but they might say, well, I just want to see more about this person. You can present your business on a business page or present your business as a business. And by the way, this is the main way that Facebook wants businesses to be represented on its platform, or you might risk a terms of service violation and they could come after you, or they could just kick you off, as they love to do. So the business page also allows you to advertise on Facebook. So if you decide that you sell, high-end automobiles that are used, let's say, but they're Ferraris. So you want to go to a certain target audience. They tend to live in a certain place. You can target zip codes. You can target people by income. You can target people by interests like classic cars. And then you can pay them and Facebook will put your ads in front of those types of people. But you cannot do that with a personal profile. You can then see your metrics, how many people viewed it. And even with a post that you're not advertising or boosting or without a campaign, you can see the metrics. If you made a post tomorrow about your business, how many people saw it. And at a certain point, you could even look at it and see when they saw it. You can also create events for your business, whether they're online or in person. They're almost trying to be like Eventbrite. You know, they want to take the payment and everything. And there is a capability to do that, to manage payments and reservations through Facebook. And then you can have multiple administrators. So let's say you have a Facebook page, but you don't want to touch it, but you've got, your assistant or a family member who's just much more astute at it. You basically give them a role as administrator. Now, one of the things that I want to caution you about with all of your social media is I often run into folks that are trying to get access to their social media. They've lost it. Why? Because maybe they had an assistant that they brought in. It didn't work out. That person left and they left with a username and password and they just don't know. So you want to make sure that you delegate access appropriately and make sure that you have all the usernames and passwords. And if you're going to make any changes, you can move them out of your social media before you tell them, so that you don't end up in a situation that I, sadly see all too often. So you don't want to lose access to your stuff, because then you have to go through Facebook and it becomes long and drawn out. So I already talked to you about reach, and I've already taught you about how they make money by selling ads. You're going to see these slides. What I wanted to do is to move over, and Instagram and Facebook are related. I want to get to the point where we can ask questions. I want to talk to you a little bit just about LinkedIn, because we're all businesses and LinkedIn is business oriented. But remember, a good portion of people in LinkedIn are corporate people, and they use LinkedIn as like their online resume. There are not as many users in the US as there are Facebook users. But note this, 48% of these people are on it at least once a month. You get a higher end audience. 90 million of these folks are senior level of executives, and they are in decision-making positions. And this can be very important because LinkedIn is a great opportunity for selling. I'll talk to you about that in a minute. Obviously, it tends to be more biased towards male users. But here's where I told you that the use of Facebook is is more intense than LinkedIn. The average user is spending 17 minutes a month on LinkedIn. That's not a lot. Now, the average user is going to be very skewed to the people that have a profile and haven't touched it in years, and those that are using it all the time because they're job hunting or they're trying to do sales. But the bottom line is, this is going to tell you that, again, coming home, having, having a glass of wine, you're not just seeing people say, oh, let me pick up and look in LinkedIn. That's just not the way LinkedIn appears to be used. It's very much more focused. But that same approach of sharing more than you're selling still holds, because again, people are in their private time doing this. So why turn them off? Show them that you have capabilities, that you have content, that you are really in depth into your part of your business. And then you kind of earn the right to do a little sales. So one of the things that I wanted to talk to you about was social selling with LinkedIn, or LinkedIn networking. So social selling is when you have targeted a particular audience, and you may even have individuals in particular companies that you want to work with. Let's say you know who the decision maker is, they hold a certain type of role. You can do that through LinkedIn networking. There are all kinds of tools out there. Some of them are better than others. But one thing you would actually need to do to use this is to have something called Sales Navigator. It is an upgrade of LinkedIn. LinkedIn by itself is free, but LinkedIn free comes with limitations in terms of the number of outreaches you can make, and also the level of detail that you can see about people in terms of searching. So if I want to search in a particular company for a particular role, it's easier for me to use Sales Navigator. And if I want to outreach to them by introducing myself, by sending an in-mail, which is their way of reaching out to somebody who is not connected to you, I have far less limitations through Sales Navigator. But if I am a B2B person, I sell to other businesses, and there are distinct roles within those businesses that I want, LinkedIn can be really useful for me. So essentially, it's a 4-step process. You segment and you target the people that you want to reach. You identify individuals. You make an outreach of some type, and ultimately you meet with them. Now, this is not where you solicit somebody and then you're immediately asking for a meeting. You have to cultivate this. So you may ask for a connection, and then you may comment on the things that they comment on. It's kind of a stalking thing in a sense, but you're trying to get to know them, and you're trying to get them to get to know you, and you're sharing interesting information that they might be interested in. And at a certain point, you do say, gee, I'd love to meet you to talk about your product, to talk about my product. And, that can be a yes or a no, but it is effective. People do this. I've seen it done badly, and I've seen it done well. So all kinds of features are coming to LinkedIn. You might be able to go live on LinkedIn. It's not available to everybody. You actually have to go through an approval process. They don't want people on there selling jewelry and multi-level stuff. They want, true educational content. So I want to just now move into kind of towards the end. So you're familiar with Twitter. You're familiar with TikTok. There are many platforms, but again, your choice of platform really has to be driven by who is your target audience and where they are. So we already talked about metrics before. These are the metrics for a website. And of course, if you're looking at Facebook or LinkedIn, you're looking at likes, you're looking at clicks, you're looking at how many people have been exposed to your post, which you can get in your business analytics on Facebook. It can tell you where traffic is coming from on your website. For example, if you have Google Analytics installed, where is it coming from? Did they come because they entered your name or your the topic of your business into the Google search thing, and it is served up as a result and somebody clicked on it? Is it because they clicked on your ad? Did they come there because you emailed them and you had a campaign and they clicked on that? Are they using a laptop or an iPhone? And also, are they in Europe or Latin America or in the US? So you can customize your data. You can focus on a particular region. You can exclude regions. So oftentimes I will exclude India because some of my clients have people who work on their websites in India. So that's not like a valid market for them. They don't sell there. You can also exclude particular IP addresses. So if you are a company and your employees go onto your website, you don't want that counted as customer traffic. So you can exclude that. Remember the expectations. I'm not going to walk through this, but the expectations are there and they're driven by the metrics and what we see on average. But the thing is, what do you do with this information? I mean, there are practical applications, but I always warn about vanity metrics. People like to think of, oh, I've got 1 million visitors to my website. I've got so many visits. I've got a lot of follows on my social media, and I've got a lot of likes. That can be great. But your ultimate metric is, are you getting the sales that you want to get? And sometimes we might rest our laurels on the fact that we're getting a lot of follows, but those follows aren't leading to other clicks and they aren't leading to sales. So we have to look a little bit deeper than just the metrics alone. So I would rather have fewer visitors, but visitors who buy, than more visitors and hardly any sales. That's basically the way we have to look at it. So in the end, how do you start all this stuff? We're understanding who our customer is, our messaging. We're getting our information sources together, particularly if you're having a website, you want your information sources together. You want to create that business listing on Google. So business.google.com. For social media, pick 1 or 2 platforms and learn them. And be consistent in your posting schedule. So if you think that you can only do this once a week, that's what you do. Imagine what your profile will look like after a couple of months. People will be able to look down the page and go, this person's active. They're not going to say, oh, they only did, they didn't do 3 times a month, so I'm going to cut them out. No, that's not where people's heads are. Determine if you want to use additional tools like a Hootsuite or one of the competitors to that. And then use the analytics that we talked about to track your performance and learn from it. But always keep your eye on that goal of, the revenue line, because that's really going to be the driver here. And then make changes as needed. As I told you, I think even with websites, you cannot be, you can't think of it as a static thing that will never change. After a few months of being the way it is, you may say, I need to make some changes. I might need to decrease the emphasis on a particular message, or maybe this page just doesn't even belong on my website anymore, or my staffing has changed. All of those things are adjustments that you would need to make. So key takeaways, digital presence really is letting your business be where people are, and it's going to support your brand. You want to leverage all the capabilities of the platforms. And if I didn't mention it, these platforms are changing. Facebook is changing all the time. Different capabilities are added, and they may or may not be relevant for your business. Just because something new comes doesn't mean you have to use it, but you need to understand what it is. You want to understand who is using the platform, the social media platform, and how they intersect with your target audience. You want to assume that whoever's looking at you, no matter whether it is on Facebook or whether it is on LinkedIn or whether it is on your website, they have a short attention span. And by the way, if your messaging on your website is different from your messaging on your social media, that would be a mistake. You want to make sure that they are aligned, because people will move easily from one to the other. Because as I said, when you create your website, you should be linking back to your social media, and you should allow sharing of that website via social media. And then in your social media, you should always reference your website. You're going to have it in your social media profile, but you can also have it in your posts, like if you're sharing a blog post. So this traffic back and forth is natural and something that is going to cause growth for your visibility. So with that, I want to open up for questions, because I know there have been a few, and I think some of them are it may be very, very specific, and we may have to talk offline, but let me go to, okay. Now I see where the raised hand is. Olga, are you able to talk? Okay. I'm gonna.
I'm sorry, I'm here.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm looking for Olga Ignatieva or Denise Warren. Denise, raise your hand as well.
I think I made it so that Olga, both of them, I'm asking to unmute, but I'm not seeing any. For some reason, they're not unmuted. Can they type their questions in the chat?
Yes, can you type your questions in the chat box? That way we can address. So there was one question about, can one personal profile connect to more than one business page? I believe it can. I'm not 100% sure, Greg, but you could try it and see. We do know that each business profile needs to be tied to a personal profile. They, you know, with all the stuff that happened with the election and stuff, they just want to know that you are who you say you are. There's a question, I'm interested in developing a website. What are my first steps and who can help me create my page? Well, there are lots of companies out there that can help you create your page. You know, you may want to do a Google search, you know, but in terms of developing your website, as I talked about, the first thing is understanding what your objectives are. The second thing is understanding who your customer is. And then start putting some things down on paper. You may not be the ideal person to write your content, but you want to start somewhere. You know, what are the things that you want people to take away from your website? Once you understand what your website is there for, then you can say, all right, I want to, you know, there are traditional things. When you look at a website, there are traditional things that are normally there. There's that welcome page. That welcome page tells you, who am I? Why am I here? What do I do? And then there may be a page that talks about your services. Well, what are the services that you provide? I do A, B, and C. Here is how I do them. And then here is who I do them with. And then maybe there's an About Us page where, you know, that's your bio. And then finally, how can I get in contact with you? So there's a Contact Us page. So that's like a basic outline to a website. And if you look at other websites, you'll see that coming through loud and clear all over the place. And that's why. So I think you start with organization. You start with your objective, and then you start to organize your, I call them like buckets of information that you want to put. And then you can decide that you want to do it yourself, and we can maybe guide you, or you can totally outsource it and find a company that is a website development company. And I also want to say, you know, for more detailed support, you're eligible, I believe, for an hour of consultation after this class. Now, let's see, other considerations involved with creating a website: security, companies to develop websites. So we talked a little bit about, you know, what should go on it. Finding companies is really, you know, kind of word of mouth. You can, again, Google that, you know, web developer near me. You just want to make sure, you know, you'd like to see the work that has been done. This is not necessarily a situation where the cheapest is the best. You know, I have fixed things that the least expensive ones among us have done. You know, maybe using a template and it all looks good, but then you find out that, you know, part of that page, they never actually even adjusted to reflect the current business. So you want to make sure that that type of thing is done. In terms of security, the main thing you want to do is make sure that you have backups if you're making changes. Your site can be hacked, so you want to make sure that you talk to your hosting provider about this. The other thing that you would need is what they call an Ssl certificate. So the Ssl certificate is this lock that shows up in the corner of a website that you go to. And it used to be that you would only see that if you were on an e-commerce site, and Google required that for e-commerce sites. But a couple of years ago, Google started requiring it for every site. And what it's doing is it's basically saying that your data is being transmitted. If there's any personal data, it's being transmitted in a safe way. Again, you don't have to be actually doing e-commerce on your site, but Google is penalizing right now sites that have not upgraded to add an SSL. You can do that through your host, GoDaddy, or anybody else who is your host, or wherever you bought your web address, your URL from. And you just ask them to add that, and they have to actually add it. There are things that they need to do in order to do it. It's not, such a high fee, but, doing it right is important. So I think, there's a little extra cost, but that's going to be important, because without the SSL, you will be deprioritized in the results if somebody is looking for something from you. Well, okay. I think the best thing to do if you're really looking to start your website is to make sure that you have all of your content together. And maybe, having a consultation with Sbdc would help you to understand if you're ready to really go there. So Denise, I would recommend that. You can do that in fairly short order. Okay. Let me look and see if there's any other questions here. So I do want to go back to Quincy's question, because we talked about conversions, and I'm using marketing language. So a conversion is a lot of different things, but that ultimate conversion is the sale. But if you were an accountant and you were sharing some information about, your calendar of when you want your tax information from your clients, and they download something from your website, that's a conversion, because they took an action that you wanted them to take. So again, any little action that signifies that I'm about to buy from you is a good thing. In the world of customer relationship management tools, you even value different conversions. A purchase is 100. A download of an item is 50. Filling out the form to make an appointment is worth 75, because that's even more effort. So you basically have this continuum of no effort, nobody's done anything, to I've totally made a sale. And that's how you actually can say, well, this customer did this, and you can actually put a value to that customer in terms of the likelihood that they're going to purchase something from you. But that's kind of down the road in terms of the analytics and scale. Usually larger scale companies are doing things like this. Other questions? So I think we have like a really large topic, but the objective here is to get you familiar with those considerations, to get you to feel like, social media does have a place. And for those of you that are questioning the need for a website, to understand the value that a website brings you, and then to understand that the metrics are there to help you on this journey of continuous improvement that we're all on, which is, how can I do better to reach this customer, to serve this customer group? And for some reason, I'm just not able to get control of the mouse so that I can scroll. Oh, I apologize. There you go. So individuals sitting on my site and playing with my maps is a conversion, and maybe I should look at the other associated. Yes, if maps are important to what it is you do and they're interacting, that's good, because that's going to tell you that that's a longer visit. The longer the visit, the better. We just don't want people upset thinking, oh, nobody came to my site and they didn't come and they didn't stay, because oftentimes I work with an association. Their average, it's 1 minute and 57 seconds. That's the average visit to the site, but they're able to check the calendar there. They're able to click on a link that allows them to go to another place and make and make a reservation for a class. So that's all they actually need to do. And so what we're trying to do is to make sure that whatever that action is, they're never more than 1 or 2 clicks away from doing it. Here. All right. Well, I think we are at the end of our time. I could talk about this forever, but I don't want to hurt you all. So I don't know, Priscilla, do you see anything else that we need to react to? I just want to make sure that we've caught, I think everything is in the chat. We don't have anything in the chat.
There's no Q&A.
All right.
I think all the questions we got to.
Excellent. Excellent. All right. Well, I do want to thank everybody for listening, for your questions. If questions come up afterwards, make an appointment. We can address them. Sometimes you may have something that's very specific to your business that you don't want to share with the group. Questions are good because that's going to help you learn more about your business. And I'm just checking to see. Excellent. So thank you, Daniel. Thanks, everyone. Priscilla, do you want to take over from here?
Sure, no problem. All right, so thank you, Cecilia, for another informative session on websites and social media. I have on the screen our contact information. Maybe I can just do a quick call out here to see, is there anyone on today's call that would like a follow-up on today's webinar? If you would like, so can you quickly raise your hand? We do post-webinar consultation, so if you are interested in having that one-on-one, you can just let us know. But if not, if you haven't raised your hand, you can definitely reach out to us. Our information is on the screen here. You can go to www.rnsbdc.com, and in the right-hand corner, there's the button that says Request Counseling. If you fill that form out, we would receive your request. You simply just check the section that says Marketing, and there's a section that you can specifically add in some comments with what you need help with. So we'll definitely assign you, and whether it's Cecilia or if it's any other area, we'll assign you to the best counselor that can help you, and we get you that one-on-one. So we look forward to hearing from you and helping you with growing your business. So if there's no other question, I will be, let me look really.
Yes, Vivian, we will be sending out the webinar, a recording, and then you can reach out. Okay.
Yes. All right. So again, I'll bid everyone a good afternoon, and we look forward to seeing you on future webinars. I think we have quite a few coming up next week. Some on e-commerce, and for those that are in the food business, we have 2 great webinars coming up next week. So we look forward to seeing you then. Have a good afternoon, everyone.
Thanks so much. And thanks, Priscilla.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.
At the New Jersey Sbdc Network, our mission is simple: to help businesses grow and succeed. Our consulting, training, and information services make it easier for businesses to reach their potential. Whether you're currently in operation or just starting out, we have the right tools, resources, and expertise to help you succeed. Visit us online to get started on your path to success today.